Unbelievablebeats.com production.
Good afternoon, Shaun Friedman, Unbelievablebeats.com. I gave a tutorial on this Muse box the other day, but I really didn't get into how to use it with your digital audio workstation or whatever DAW you're going to be using. And definitely is possible as far as the audio and Midi setup. You can do it either way. So if you're a composer that's comfortable actually just playing in the parts and seeing your actual audio wave file, you're of course good for that. You just need to hook up your Midi and then your audio. In this particular situation, I just have my Midi controller. It's a USB Midi cable just going into my laptop. So that's controlling all the sounds of, in this case, FL Studio. So there's a hi-hat sound. So that's a hi-hat sound from the internal sound bank of FL Studio. And now as far as getting this Muse box in any digital workstation, I actually have it hooked up to my interface because this Muse box has a Midi in. So I'm using this MBox 2 interface that's just connected USB to my laptop as well. And as a side note, this MBox 2 can work with Windows, Windows XP, Windows 7, pretty much any computer now. This is the old DigiDesign. They used to hold you hostage where you could only use it with Pro Tools or a Mac or something like that. But now if you have this in your closet somewhere just sitting around, you can actually use this with any computer. It has the newest drivers for Windows 7 and all that good stuff. So that's just a side note. So I got my USB interface set up. So this actually has a Midi out. So my Midi output is going to the Midi input of this Muse box. And then I have the outputs of this Muse box. If you were using like in a live situation, that would obviously just go to your speakers or PA system. But I have the outputs going into my interface to record into your computer. So, okay. So let's go on with this. So I actually had to set out, you have to set up a MIDI out channel. In this case it's FL Studio, but I'm sure it's the same for Reaper or Cubase, Pro Tools, any other popular workstations. So the audio is obviously going to be the MBox 2 in your main settings. And then for MIDI, you know, you can have any MIDI controller. In this case, it's the Phantom MIDI controller. And there's a, on the output, it's actually coming up with MBox 2 MIDI out. And that's coming up with port number. You can name the port number whatever you want. So it's called port number 1. So MIDI port 1. Make sure you set up your port correctly. And you're pretty much all set. Set up a MIDI out channel and put it on port 1. And now this is playing the Muse box through my computer. That's a brass section. Brass. Okay, just making sure you can hear that. And I keep touching this computer because it keeps going to sleep. I'm not sure if the video was still recording. Alright, so now if you want to record that as audio, you can, however you use your workstation, you know, just hit record on your track and record, and it's going to record whatever you want it to. Now, as far as triggering the Midi, let's say you don't want to record a part in real time, or you're the type of composer that wants to actually paint paint in or pencil in your MIDI notes, that's also possible with this. So you'd still set out a MIDI out channel, and then inside that channel there's the piano roll. And so, if I wanted to play the regular audio, you're a composer that likes playing it in, you can do that. But if you want to paint in the notes, you could also do that with the Muse box. So watch this. Here. Why is that making two noises? Oh no, that's right. So do that with that if you want to play it that way. Or I'm just going to use my mouse right now to show you. Play the same thing again. And I'm just doing that with my mouse in FL Studio. So you can trigger that with the with your MIDI editor. Now, a little caveat about that. If you're playing the audio straight in and you're comfortable playing the piano or keys or drums, whatever you're doing, it's going to be a WAV file at that point. And when you export, when you render down through your digital audio workstation, the audio is obviously going to be there. But if you're painting in these notes in a MIDI out channel or penciling them in, you're actually going to still have to change this to audio. So in this particular situation, you could use Edison, or you can record into the playlist. You're going to want to actually capture that little pattern that you're painting in. You actually have to turn that into audio within your workstation setup. Unless for somehow you were recording externally to like a CD player or some type of other recorder, at that point it would probably still come out if you're just recording it that way. But that's probably a rare case, and if you're rendering down within your computer, you're going to have to change those MIDI notes into audio. So that's pretty much it. Just wanted to go over using this with digital audio workstations. So definitely works, and you can also set up the MIDI channel for each synth, but this only has really 2 synth channels. So at any given time, you could set up a MIDI out channel. Channel 1 is going to be synth 1 on top, and then channel 2 is going to be synth 2 on the bottom. But there's not much else you can do as far as the MIDI and the Muse box. Of course, like I mentioned before, if you're a composer that actually likes to play stuff in and you're comfortable with that, yeah, just go to each sound, play it in, next sound, play it in, next sound, play it in. You're good. That's why using an external MIDI box and actually painting in or penciling in notes is sometimes obviously takes a little more time because you have to transfer that back to audio. It's not like dealing with a plug-in VST like Native Instruments or something like that that's already inside as a plug-in instrument in your computer. Since this is external, if you want to paint it in, you're going to have to change it to audio. And this also would work in your workstation if you're hooking up a guitar and want to use the effects in this. That's obviously just the audio. You don't have to worry about triggering the MIDI anymore. So you just hook up your guitar, get your levels right in your interface. Same thing with your microphone. And same thing with a keyboard if you want to use the auxiliaries on the back. But at that point, you'd probably just, if you were using a keyboard, you might just be using your normal interface. Or if you really like the effects in here, you could use that first. So just wanted to go over the Muse box as far as MIDI notation in a digital workstation, and just playing it as audio, so it works both ways. And thanks for watching. Have a gracious Sunday.